First of all, I just wanted to introduce the session and talk a little bit about Sporting Heritage. So I'm Justine Marley, I'm the founding director of Sporting Heritage, and our work is to look after and support and protect all the different collections that exist around sporting heritage across the UK. So that can be tangible heritage, objects, artefacts, film, video, photographs, or intangible objects and heritage such as oral histories, folklore, songs, all manner of different things that tell that sporting heritage past. And part of that activity is working really closely with lots of different organisations. Many of you are here today, and many different individuals and volunteers who are looking after those collections, and how we can support you to ensure that that happens. And one of the things that we know is really crucial is being able to have the capacity and the funding to be able to deliver that. And this session today is very much around supporting your understanding of and how they may be able to support you going forward. And breaking down a little bit of the boundaries, I suppose, around how you actually manage to access that funding and hearing from the funders themselves. So we're delighted to have this this session this morning, and really grateful to Arts Fundraising and Philanthropy and Heritage Compass for supporting us to be able to deliver this. And lots of the funders that you'll see today are also really big supporters and helpers of our work generally. So it's brilliant to have them all here, and in a moment we'll introduce them all and they'll introduce the work that they're doing. So I'm going to just hand over to our team. I'm going to introduce them to you. We'll be around for the day to help with some of the breakout sessions, but just to give you a kind of brief overview about who everybody is. Jo Boardman, who set up this session and is our amazing business development manager lead, she'll be guiding you through the whole session and supporting you with what's happening today. Fran Stovold, who's our workforce development lead, who is our technical whiz behind the screens, setting everything up, and we'll be monitoring the chat. And then Sonia Asprey, who's one of our brilliant Sporting Heritage associates. So you'll see us in and out of the rooms and the groups. If you drop things in chat, we will discuss with you and make sure we put those to the funders if there's any questions or anything. Fran will go into detail about how to do that in a moment, but ready to hand over to you, Jo, and the funders.
Thanks, Justine. Welcome everybody. Really pleased to see you all here today. So many people, which is brilliant. And again, just to reiterate what Justine said, thank you to Arts Fundraising and Philanthropy for the Networks grant that's allowed us to run this session. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to do this. So today we've got a fabulous mix of funders and also support organisations here today, and not just grant funders, but we have social investors as well, and also organisations. You just muted me there. Sorry, I was just muted there. It doesn't matter. So yeah, we've got a fabulous mix of people that are going to be talking about their funds, their social investments, and how they can support you moving forward. And I know primarily there's lots of heritage, arts, culture, museums here today, and archive organisations here today. But to be honest, this is for everybody, because you know it doesn't matter whether you're an advice charity or whether you're a museum or an archive. Actually, the stuff that we're going to be talking about today is going to be really relevant for everybody. So we've split it down into 4 distinct sections. So the first section is everybody, all the speakers will be introducing themselves, their funds, what it is that they do, so you can get an idea of who they are and what they've got available. The second session is the breakout rooms. So we will have 3 breakout rooms, and that will give you more chance to ask questions to those funders. So it's a bit like a dating thing. We're going to be moving all the funders through each of the breakout rooms, so you won't move, you'll stay in the same room with one of the Sporting Heritage team, but the funders will move through all 3 rooms. And then the third section, after you've had your coffee break, the third section is then top tips, because that's the other thing that we all need, is top tips on how we can make the best applications possible. So we're going to get top tips from all the speakers about what you need to think, the do's, the don'ts, and then the final thing is the Q&A. So we will be, as Justine mentioned, we will be monitoring the chat, we will be picking up the questions, taking them into the breakout rooms, but there will be a section at the end where you can ask Q&A. And if we don't get a chance to address all the questions that are asked, we will sort that out after the session so that we can ask the funders and the speakers for those questions that we've missed. And I think that's it. It's a bit of a packed 3 hours. So I'm hopefully you're going to get something from it. We're really excited about it. I'm now going to shut up and I'm going to pass you on to Fran, who's going to tell you about the housekeeping and the tech for this morning's session.
Lovely, thanks, Jo. So a few quick pieces about the housekeeping for today. As you can see, it's a super busy session. We've decided to run it in the meeting format so that we can have this extra aspect of interaction between yourselves and our funders and support agencies today. Quite often these sessions are run in the webinar format where you don't get to chat quite so much, but it does mean that we are busy. If you can, for this first section, until we go into the breakout rooms, keep yourself on mute, that would be brilliant. We are recording the session, so it's up to you whether you would like to be recorded and keep your cameras on or not. It's completely your choice. To make it easy to see who's speaking, we would recommend you have your screens on gallery view, and then it will easily sort of rotate around the various speakers as they jump in and out. If we do, for any reason, have technical difficulties, so if you have technical difficulties at your end and you drop out of the session, I will keep an eye on the waiting room, just log straight back in, and I will let you back in as soon as I can. If we have technical difficulties at our end, and for any reason the session goes down, we will endeavour to get it back up within this 3-hour time frame, and I will contact everybody if we have difficulties and we have to reschedule for any reason. So I think that's everything I need to say for now. I think Jo's already mentioned, because we are so busy this morning, if you do have any questions, pop it into the chat. We will pick them up. It's much easier than having lots of voices coming in, because it's quite difficult to manage when we're this busy. So yeah, if you pop your screens onto speaker view, I'll hand back to Jo to start the introductions.
Thanks, Fran. Right, so we're going to start. So we've got some fabulous people here today who are going to tell you about their funds and the support that they can provide you. And we're going to start off with my old colleague, not old, but we used to work together. So Lucy Davis, who's the Sector Grants and Development Manager from the National Archives. So I will hand over to you, Lucy.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Jo, very much. I'm so pleased to be invited. This is great. I'm just trying to, there we go, share my screen. Is that okay for everybody? Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to try really hard to keep to the 5 minutes that Jo has set us. And I am going to touch on some top tips, because I'm not going to be with you later on in the session. So my name's Lucy Davis. I administer the funding programs that are offered by the National Archives. There are 2 funding programs that I'm going to tell you about this morning. One of the first is Archives Revealed, and the second is called Collaborate and Innovate. Now, an important thing to note is that I just administer the program. So that means I don't sit on the panels. So you can ask me anything and it doesn't prejudice any application that you might make. You can be as frank and as open as you like. In fact, I encourage you to do so with your questions. Okay, so I'm hoping that moved on. The first one I'm going to talk about is Archives Revealed. So there are 2 funding streams within Archives Revealed. The first is open at the moment for expressions of interest. It's the cataloguing grants stream. It's for grants of up to £45,000 for archives to create catalogues of archive collections. It's open for expressions of interest until the 13th of December. And if you want to make an application, I'm going to talk a bit about it in a minute, but if you want to make an application, you need to contact me on archivegrants@nationalarchives.gov.uk in order to be able to set up a conversation so that I can talk you through that first stage application. The second fund that is open all year round with quarterly cut-off points are scoping grants. And these are for micro grants of up to £3,000, and we fund a scoping assessment. So for those of you who have collections that aren't ready necessarily to apply for a cataloguing grant, where you want to know, you want some expert advice, you want to know what you've got, where to take it next, how to plan for it, for the safekeeping of it, in order to make it open to the public, then a scoping grant might be the one for you. So what is Archives Revealed all about? Well, Archives Revealed is a partnership funding programme. It's a partnership between the National Archives, the Wolfson Foundation and the Pilgrim Trust. We all put in the same amount of money. We administer it, TNA, and the Pilgrim Trust are the bankers for the scheme. And the aims, why do we do it? The aims of Archives Revealed, and I am just going to talk you through these very quickly because this is what we're all about. So any application that you send to us, keep these in the back of your mind. We are about making significant collections accessible to national and local audiences. What do we mean about significant? It doesn't need to be nationally significant. It can be regionally significant. And we have some really clear guidance as to how you can construct a significant statement in order to be able to articulate what you believe the significant parts of your collection to be. Our next aim is around diversity and inclusion. So we want to be an inclusive and responsible funder that supports diversity across the sector. What do we mean by diversity? We mean in terms of the types of collections that are being made available, in terms of the audiences that the collections are being accessed by, and the types of archives that are applying for the funding. So the breadth of diversity of the sector is represented by our funds. The funding that we have, we want to increase the sorry, I just need to move my slide on there. We want to increase the visibility and the use of archive collection across audiences, and reveal the stories and experiences of people, communities and events, so that people can see their stories represented within archives in the UK. We want to, the next one is around impact and value of archives. So we want to highlight the value of archives in making a difference to people's lives. And the next is around standards and approaches to cataloguing. So that is just basically that we want those projects that are funded by the cataloguing grants, that they represent examples of excellence in cataloguing and discovery. And finally, we hope through our support, we are that we give applicants, we want to be able to build fundraising skills and confidence through the application process. So I hope that I'm getting across to you that we are very open. Approaches, we would love to talk to you. So next, let me just give you a couple of top tips around the cataloguing grants application process. Number one is be eligible. We are really oversubscribed. And so I really encourage you to have a look at our eligibility. And if you think, oh, I fit into that, but that bit's a bit dodgy, I'm probably going to say to you, we don't have any wiggle room, really, I suppose is what I'm saying. But if you've got any questions where you think, oh, are we eligible? I think we are. Again, please just contact us. Just drop me an email. I'd love to talk to you and we can discuss it. Another top tip is people often you don't get many words. So when we ask you to describe your collection, we sometimes get people that describe the organisation rather than the collection. And I think that can happen sometimes because you're so passionate about the organisation that you work for, it becomes altogether one bundle. But we want the panel need to understand exactly what they would be funding if they were to fund the cataloguing of this collection. So you need to make sure that you're just describing the collection. And it's really helpful if you can give the panel some information around the context of the collection. And by that, I mean, where does it sit within the within other collections of a similar type throughout the UK? I encourage you to think about how cataloguing the collection will make a difference to audiences and accessibility. So I touched on those within the aims. And also, if the collection is partially catalogued, it's really, I would encourage you to explain to the panel how a cataloguing grant will transform that accessibility. So to make it clear to them, our panel, we've got 12 people that are from the archive and heritage sector. So between them, they're pretty aware of most collections that apply. And so if they're kind of questioning, well, hold on, I thought this was catalogued, or I thought this was partially accessible, it might not compare as favorably as an application for a collection that is totally inaccessible at the moment. So think about that when you're applying. Finally, I encourage you to leave the panel with a clear sense of what the funding will pay for and the difference that it will make. Right, scoping grants, top tips. Know what you want to use the scoping grant for. Often people apply and it's not clear to the panel what do they want to do next. So if it's to advocate for other funders, make that clear. If it's that you want help, you think this isn't safe here, it's not the best place for it to be, we need to deposit it and we need help to do that, make that clear, because that will help the panel understand the difference that the grant will make to you. Be realistic about what can be assessed. You have 6 days, 3 grand, which is essentially 6 days of a consultant's time. 3 days to assess, 3 days to research and write the report. So think about what can be achieved in that time. And be honest about the current state of the collection. Often when you write to funders, you want to present the most positive scenario, but with scoping grants, we need to understand what's actually going on with that collection. So be really honest. And be clear about your organisation's commitment and ability to act on the recommendations within the report. So have I got 2 minutes? Okay. Right.
Nearly done, Lucy. Nearly done.
Sorry? Am I done?
Well, a couple of minutes. Have you got a couple more slides?
Yeah. Okay, I was going to say hang in there, but I'm just going to scoot on past that. Right, Collaborate and Innovate. I've got 2 funds there, Archive Test Beds, which are at the moment grants of £10,000. Next year will be back down to £5,000 to test and explore an idea. And the whole thing about these grants is for the whole sector to benefit from the learning outcomes. So if you've got a germ of an idea, something you think, this is a problem that I'm trying to tackle. It could be a digital problem or a resilience issue, and you want to run a little experiment or a test or get something started, then we would love to help you fund that. And I've just reopened that fund to the 13th of December again. I'm going to be very busy on the 13th of December. So if you want to talk about that, I'd love to talk to you. Networks for Change, you need to be an archive holder. And you need to hold an archive as your main, the main applicant. But this is grants for up to 15,000 to either develop or strengthen a network. And my only tip for you for this is to think about what is going to happen, what's the legacy, what's going to happen afterwards. We get lots of people that put in for an application to set up a network. It's only 15 grand, and then there's no kind of what's going to happen when that 15 grand runs out. I encourage you to think about that before you put in an application. Those are my top tips. I hope that's helpful. Back to you, Jo, in the studio.
Thanks, Lucy. Do you want to stop sharing the screen? Yes. And fab. Thank you so much, Lucy. That was really useful. And you did 10 minutes, but I'll let you off because you gave top tips as well. So that's fab. So the next speaker that we've got today is Carla Marshall. And Carla is the coordinator of the Yorkshire Funders Forum. So she's got a very important job because she brings together a forum of so many different funders where they all talk together. So I'm going to now hand you over to Carla to tell you a little bit more about the Yorkshire Funders Forum.
Oh, thanks, Jo. Now I know you're packing a lot into this hour, so I'll keep mine brief. And just to make it clear as well, with the Yorkshire Funders Forum, we don't actually hold any funds. So you might Google us after this and be like, oh, right, oh God, if I call Carla or email Carla, I'm going to have access to, 50 funders. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. But why Joe asked me to speak, really, because just to give you an idea, because there should be other funders forums out there in your region as well. So it's just something else when you're doing your research and you're looking for various pots of money, just also have a sort of a Google as well. And just to give you a bit of background, so my main job is the trust manager for the Sir George Martin Trust. And we've been going for nearly 60 years, and we give grants in West Yorkshire. We do support heritage projects, sports, but it's got to be impacting on disadvantaged and vulnerable people. So if you are working and you're based in the West Yorkshire area, then have a look at our website and drop me a line. But as Joe said, my other job is the coordinator for the Yorkshire Funders Forum. And a little bit of history there. So it actually started in 1993. And my father-in-law, who used to do my job, actually helped start it up with Joseph Roundtree and a couple of community foundations. And basically, over the last nearly 30 years, we've been running forums. Before COVID, there were 2 forums a year in May and November. And it was all about networking and, connecting people and providing learning opportunities. Because, Yorkshire's quite far to London. Not all of us in Yorkshire want to pay the train fare to London. So that was basically why it all started. And what we found, so we were having sort of 40 or 50 people attending our forums. And I see Helen. Helen's one of my Yorkshire comrades there. And Helen actually used to host some of the meetings as well. So we had everyone from sort of Heritage National Lottery, the real big boys, as I call them, down to really small family trusts who maybe give out £5,000 or £10,000 a year. So it's quite a unique group where you've got a real range of funders. And what happened over COVID was we had a May event ready to go. And then unfortunately, obviously had to stop that being in person. So we started doing Zoom events like this and actually found that we had about the same number of people, about 50. But again, talking about COVID, doing breakouts just like this, and just funders really keeping them connected and having sort of useful speakers as well. And then what happened was everyone was like, oh, Carla, you're in the forum, you're doing a really good job. Could you do some more? You seem like the natural group to do more. And it was a bit like, ooh, okay. Well, it's sort of me, part-time, and then our voluntary committee, who are all from various funders in the region. So I'm trying to do more, and but obviously with one sort of half a person, it's quite hard. But what we're doing now is actually, we did a feasibility study as well to ask all the funders in our area if they'd like us to do more and what to do. And one of the first things was they said, oh, why don't you become a charity, a proper entity? And then over time, we may be able to build up an actual paying member base like London funders do. I don't know if any of you know them. So that's our sort of long-term goal. But in the meantime, and what we've started this year, and we're going to do more next year, is doing more in-person and online events. And we're also starting task forces. So we've actually started a task force and we're looking at creating a common Yorkshire application form, which is like the holy grail. So the idea is we're going to try and have one form which basically everyone could fill in, but that one form will go to their multiple funders who've joined up to the initiative. So we're really trying to see if we can solve problems that we know a lot of groups like you're like, oh, this is so painful. Why am I having to do 20, 30 odd different applications? It's going to take time, but we're trying to see if we can solve some of those problems. And then we'll also, as well, in your area, look up, there's more local forms as well. So in our area now, we've got Bradford, we've got South Yorkshire, we've got North Yorkshire. So you might find in your area, you've got a bigger sort of county or region-wide forum, and then you might have some smaller local forums. So it's worth getting to know them. And they actually are trying to pool funds and do collaborative work. And that, again, is sort of some of what we're trying to do. So it's really, yeah, just be aware, we're trying to work with CVSs, and just trying to be as collaborative and helpful to everyone as possible. So, have a look. If you're not in our area, see if there's someone like us in your area. And all I say is really just, try and get to know them, because the people like me and our committee, we tend to be some of the best connected people. So I might be able to say, well, actually, I know so-and-so, they're a bit low in applications at the moment, or you might want to try them. So it's just worth getting to know if there is someone like me in your region. Try and connect with them. So that's, Joe, that's probably 5 minutes, isn't it?
Thanks so much, Carla. Thank you. And really useful information. The fact that, you know, Carla's got a couple of hats there, but good advice about if you aren't already connected with your local CVS, your local council for voluntary service or voluntary action, then do. And also you should all also have local community foundations as well in your area. But yes, keeping somebody like Carla and the relevant regional funders forum by your side and connected with them is a useful tip. So thank you so much. Our next speaker today is Emma Coleman. So Emma's from the Art Fund and she's the programs manager. So she's going to tell you all about the work that they do at the Art Fund and how you can apply for their funds, what's around at the moment. Over to you, Emma.
Thanks so much, Jo. There's some fantastic advice and info coming up already. I've been taking notes. So yeah, as Jo says, I am the programs manager at Art Fund, and I'm going to briefly talk about who we are and what we're looking to support, and then I'll mention a few funding programs that are open at the moment, and then finally some upcoming opportunities. So to start, I'll introduce Art Fund. We are a national independent charity and membership organisation, and we support the vital work of museums and galleries across the UK by giving grants to help museums acquire and share works of art, to support the professional development of the sector workforce, and to connect with audiences. And we also campaign and advocate on behalf of the museum sector. So over the past year, or 18 months really, our priorities have been responding to the pandemic and supporting museums in continuing their important work with communities. And as part of this, we've also offered practical help. So we have a free ticket management system that has helped hundreds of museums in offering timed ticketing. And we've also helped museums fundraise through our crowdfunding platform, Art Happens. And we've also maintained our commitment to our core funding area, which is helping museums grow their collections and supporting the curators and the museum professionals who help make the sector a success. So those areas have been our priority over the last year and will continue to be into 2022. So in terms of who we fund and if we're relevant for you, I'm aware that we've got a lot of different organisations represented today. So I'm going to talk through this briefly. We are the Art Fund, but our support is not limited exclusively to organisations with a sole focus on the arts. So broadly, eligible organisations include museums and galleries with collections and other charitable organisations that have a visual arts remit. And when it comes to eligibility, I would say it's important to look at the criteria for the specific programme that you want to apply to, as they do sort of vary slightly. So I'm going to run through a few areas of our support which are current opportunities, which will hopefully be of interest. So firstly, acquisitions. We want to help museums develop their collections, and specifically with works of art. And we've got over £4 million available every year to do this. And grants can range from a few £100s to hundreds of thousands of pounds. The process and timescales for applying to us vary slightly depending on the price of the object and what your grant request to us would be. We can turn applications around quite quickly if, for example, something comes up at auction. So if you become aware of an artwork that you'd like to add to your collection and it feels like it fits this funding stream, do get in touch with us to have a conversation about applying. We're always keen to talk to you beforehand, and we can guide you through the application process. And if I had slides, I would right now be showing you some lovely examples of sporting art that we've recently supported, including a painting for the National Football Museum and some horse racing prints for the Seaside Museum. As well as supporting the development of collections, we also want to support the people who work at museums, galleries and heritage sites. And one relevant programme that is open for applications at the moment is the Jonathan Ruffa Curatorial Grants. So we've got £75,000 available each year through this programme, which supports museum professionals in undertaking research into collections, research for exhibitions, and also exploring professional development opportunities. This programme is not limited to those working with fine and decorative art collections, so long as the recipient can demonstrate a benefit to their organisation and to the audiences they work with. So as an example, we recently offered a grant to a curator working on an upcoming football exhibition at Brighton Museum. And with her grant, she'll be able to meet with Brighton-born footballers who are based elsewhere and explore opportunities for loans and oral histories for the exhibition. I also briefly want to mention some of our project funding. So these programs aren't open for applications at the moment, but there will be new opportunities coming in the spring next year. So firstly, our Reimagine grants, which were developed to help support organizations following the pandemic, helping them in building expertise and capacity and continuing to engage with their audiences. We've offered over £2 million so far in grants of up to £50,000 to support projects of all kinds that address at least one of our 4 priority areas, which are collections, digital, engagement, and workforce. And as I mentioned, they're not open at the moment, but we plan to reopen those project grants next year. And secondly, the Western Loan Programme, which also reopens in the spring, supports regional museums in loaning works from other collections. And our grants of up to £50,000 can support all costs associated with those loans, including transport, insurance, invigilation, promotion and accompanying exhibition programming. So if you have plans over the next few years to loan objects for planned exhibitions, keep an eye out for that because it's a really great source of support. And then finally, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we will soon be accepting applications for Museum of the Year 2022. Through Museum of the Year, we promote and we celebrate all of the amazing things that museums are doing for their communities. Each year we shortlist 5 finalist organisations, and the winner gets a £100,000 prize. And the other finalists also receive a cash prize. It's not just open to arts organisations. We like to hear from museums of all kinds, and we would love to see some sporting heritage amongst our applications. In 2017, one of our finalists was the National Horse Racing Museum at Newmarket. So if you've done some exceptional work over the last year and you want to shout about it, please do consider applying. So that is a really quick intro to Art Fund. I hope it's been helpful. I know there's lots more opportunities for us to chat throughout today.
Thank you so much, Emma, and thank you everybody for all the chat that's coming in. I'm frantically trying to follow all the chat and pick up questions so that we can obviously follow up on the questions in the breakout rooms and the Q&A session at the end. So don't worry if you're not getting a response straight away. I am scribbling things down, as I'm sure Fran and Sonia and Justine are. And we will be following those up in the breakout rooms with the funders and the investors. So our next funder, and you're all going to be waiting with bated breath, is Helen from the Heritage Fund. So Helen is going to tell you all about the current funds, obviously, that they've got available, and hope, you know, what's going to be happening moving forward as we're moving out of the pandemic, and obviously the funds that we've all seen for COVID related support. So over to you, Helen.
Hi everyone. Firstly, it's lovely to see some familiar faces and some new faces this morning. As Jo mentioned, I'm Helen from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. So some of you may have come across us under our previous name, which was the Heritage Lottery Fund. I'm going to give you a whistle-stop tour of what we do and our programmes that we have open at the moment. I talk quite fast, so apologies, but I'll try and sort of get through everything as quickly as I can. So as I say, we're the National Lottery Heritage Fund, so our funding comes directly from the National Lottery. So with that, we have a really, really strong focus on people. All of our funding, our key sort of aim is involving a wider range of people in heritage. That's essentially what we do. That's what we're looking for in every project we support. What opportunities are you providing to get people involved? So whether that's through volunteering, training, you know, sort of involving people and gathering memories, whatever it is, we want to see how you're involving people that aren't currently involved in heritage. Now, heritage is a really, really broad word, and we cover the breadth of the heritage sector. So we've supported a lot of sporting heritage projects. I'm based in the North team, and there's a lot of sporting projects that we've funded across the North, but also nationally. But we also cover the breadth of the sector. So we also fund projects that link to nature, getting people out in the outdoors, maybe people who haven't had the confidence previously to get out into the national parks or whatever. We fund projects that are looking at supporting heritage at risk, everything from museums, capital projects, archives projects, community history, cultural heritage, nature, you name it, we do it. So my first, I know top tips are later, but my first, I would say, if in doubt, just give us a shout. Don't ever rule us out, because there may be a chance, there's probably a good chance that we can fund the type of project that you're looking at. If it's got, as we say, heritage focus, which we do, we have a really broad definition. We kind of get you to tell us what the heritage that's important to you. Now, in terms of where we're at the moment, we've revised our framework to focus on using heritage as a key role to help communities move forward from the pandemic. So, you know, we are aware it's got an essential role to play, making communities better places to live, creating economic prosperity, supporting personal well-being. So all of these are going to be vitally important as we move forward from the pandemic, and we're looking to support projects that are going to help communities do just that. Now, when we talk about, in terms of the organisations we can fund a really broad range of organisations. As a rule of thumb, it's generally not-for-profit organisations, so that can be anything from charities. You don't have to be a registered charity though, local authorities, parish councils, community groups, you know, grassroots groups, museums. We can fund private owners of heritage up to the limit of £100,000, but with our funding coming directly from the National Lottery, we do have a key aim of ensuring that there is a strong public benefit, and public benefit has to outweigh any private gain. So again, if you're unsure at all, just, you know, contact us to discuss it. In terms of the programs that we fund, that we have open at the moment, we've got some standard open grants programs, and we split them into categories depending on the amount you want. And those programs start from £3,000 right up to £5 million. Now, to just give you a bit of a sort of quick tour over them, any funding up to £250,000, there is no deadline, one round of application. Again, it's a really very broad programme in that we can fund pretty much any sort of heritage project. So whether you're looking at organisational resilience to make you sort of put you in a better position to support heritage, whether it's looking at gathering memories, archives, getting people out involved in nature, doing bug hunts, whatever, we can fund it under our sort of standard open grants programme. Now, there's one application up to the limit of £250,000, and we can give you a decision in 8 weeks, and we can projects can run up to 5 years. Now, if you're looking for a small grant of up to £10,000, we run regular workshops where we go through the programme and offer support. It's a reasonably straightforward application form, very similar to the Awards for All type application form, if any of you have ever applied to Awards for All. And we can fund projects for up to 1 year under that programme, no match funding. So attend a workshop and then just pop in an application form. Any funding up to £250,000, again, one application form, will give you a decision within 8 weeks of submitting your application, and we can fund projects for up to 5 years. But realistically, we normally see projects lasting between a year and maybe 3 years max. Now, we do have a project inquiry service for this programme, so you can pop in an inquiry form, giving us a rough idea of what you want to do and roughly how much you want, and then we can get back to you with advice. Now, I do want to be clear, this isn't a yes or no sort of format. It's for us to be able to give you a steer as to whether your project's something we could support, and then we can give you some tips and advice to help strengthen your application. Now, within that sort of bracket of £10,000 to £250,000, there is a requirement for match funding if you're looking for a large amount. So anything up to £100,000, no match funding required. If you're looking for over £100,000, we would need you to put a minimum of 5% match funding in, but again, that's something we can discuss if you are interested in applying. Pop in the inquiry form and we can discuss it. I did notice in the chat there were a number of comments about capital projects, so I do want to quickly cover our large grants programme. So again, under this broad open programme, we have a large grants category for grants of £250,000 up to £5 million. Now, this is extremely competitive, so we have a mandatory EOI, expression of interest, before you apply. So you'd submit that, you do need to have a clear idea of what you want to do and roughly how much you need before you put the EOI in, because we will make a decision whether to support you to then put in an application on the result of this EOI. So this is that sort of gatekeeping form in a way. So do put some thought into it. Now with our large grants programme over £250,000, it's 2 rounds of applications in addition to the EOI, and we can fund projects for up to 7 years. Again, we have got match funding requirement for this programme, so up to a minimum of 5% of the total project costs, over £1 million, a minimum of 10%. But again, we can give you advice and support if your EOI is successful. There is a lot of information on our website about all these grant programmes, so do visit our website and have a look at the information on there. Again, if you've got any questions, you can always contact the team with questions. Our details are all on the website. Now, in terms of the programmes, just as I say, they're really, really broad. So there isn't, we are a project-based funder, so we're looking to fund projects rather than just sort of general ongoing sort of work and costs. So we would need you to think about the work you're doing in terms of your project. So what is it you're wanting to do? What is it you're aiming to do, and present it in a project format. Now, in terms of the key things we're looking at the moment, we've revised down our funding framework at the moment to focus on the short term. So our funding is very much looking at helping communities move forward from the pandemic. So we're looking at, why do you need to do the project now? We're looking at projects that need to take place now, who you're going to be involved in, because we're looking at involving a wider range of people, and that is a key aim for us. We've also got a focus on projects being environmentally friendly. So again, we do want to see that any project you're doing, regardless of what it is, you have considered what the environmental impact is. There's more, I appreciate that's a bit of a broad sort of element. So we have got guidance on our website about what we're talking about and what we are looking for from projects in terms of the environmental impact. So again, please do look at our website, or we can provide more guidance if you are looking to apply. Again, you need to evaluate your project, and then what we're looking for in terms of projects, we're an outcomes focused project. Again, all of this information is on our website. So our mandatory aim, our mandatory outcome is that you're going to involve a wider range of people in heritage. So all projects, regardless of what you're doing, have to have that strong focus on people. As I said, I did notice a few sort of comments in the chat about capital projects and physical sort of building projects. We can support capital works, but there has to be a focus on people. So why do you need to do that work? How will it enable people to learn about heritage? What are you going to do with the space? We can't just fund capital only projects. We need to have a focus on people, an activity programme to enable people to find out about the heritage you're looking to conserve. We've got a focus on place, making places a better place to live, work and visit. Well-being, again, heritage is a really, really great tool to help support people's well-being through volunteering opportunities, getting people outside. Skills, again, there's really great opportunities for people to develop skills through heritage projects. So those are all key themes that we're looking at through our funding. So I've referenced our website quite a few times. So, do use that as your starting point, but also, contact the local, obviously we're based in the north, but I do appreciate there are probably organisations here from across the UK. So every area has a sort of local office. So do contact your local office if you're wanting more information. Am I done now? Have I used up my time slot? Again, apologies. I appreciate that was quite a lot at you. It was sort of
don't apologise, Helen. Listen, thank you so much for that. And again, everybody, remember we've got the breakout rooms, so don't worry. And there's a Q&A session as well at the end. But thank you for now, Helen. That's really good to hear about what Heritage Fund has got funding wise and what you're currently doing. So our next speaker is David Ball, who is representing an absolutely fabulous organisation here in Yorkshire called Community Matters Yorkshire. David will tell you a lot more about them, but they are a support organisation that do a whole host of things supporting communities in our region and beyond. But I'm now going to pass over to David.
Thank you, Jo, and good morning. Yes, Community Matters Yorkshire, based in Leeds, but working right across the UK and in fact Southern Ireland. Our organisation looks to support organisations right from the point of setting up, right through governance, deciding on the best governance, ongoing support as you develop or as you continue, right through to providing a quality mark for your organisation. Funding, we have a funding database, a searchable funding database, but we also have a link up with Sporting Heritage that we've had for a few years, and we do a specific list of funders that would apply to your organisations. Joe has got a list from my colleague John, which he will be sending out to you afterwards. Funding, there are some tips that have come out from the funders so far this morning for their particular funds. But there are some things that you need to be aware of before you actually get to that organisation. You will be amazed how many people apply to funds that don't apply or ask for things that aren't in their criteria. I am treasurer of a fund here in Leeds, which supports childcare, and we have a maximum grant of £1,250. We get applications for £5,000. We get applications to provide white goods. We are very specific about what so it is important that you read their criteria, that you check that you are fitting their criteria. You need to demonstrate to them how you fit their criteria. And on a point of capital projects that's been mentioned so far, if you have a very large capital project, think about breaking it down and applying to different funders for different things. You're far more likely to get 5,000 here, 2,000 there, and 1,000 somewhere else than ask someone for 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 pounds to do the whole project. One funder to get the site ready, another funder to get the project up and running, another funder to provide the wherewithal to actually make it work on a day-to-day basis. When you get your application form, read it. As I say, read it and find that you can't apply for £5,000 when they've got a maximum of 1,250. Read it very, very carefully. Look for the small print and work out how you can fit their criteria, how you can make them want to fund you because you are so good. Your project is so good, and that's the important thing. A lot of applications come in which spend pages and pages telling funders what a wonderful organisation you've been for the last 100 years. And frankly, they're not interested. They're interested in what you're doing today and what you're going to do tomorrow. Okay? So be, again, that's it, very specific about the project that you want funding for. But don't be too technical. Keep it simple. Don't use acronyms and forget to explain what those acronyms are. And when you've finished, give your application to someone who had no contact and ask them to read that application. And do they understand what it is you want, what it is you want to do, and what it is you want the money for. If they don't understand it, believe me, the funder won't. Make sure that your budget adds up. Again, people submit budgets that just don't, literally do not add up. So again, check your figures. And I think finally, make sure you don't miss the deadline. Again, applications pile into funders 24 hours, 48 hours after the deadline. And when they've got a lot of applications for a small amount of money, they're just not going to look at one that arrives a day late. I think that's more or less covered most of the top tips. I will be doing a list and sending it to Jo that she can send out later. And as you're putting in your applications, just tick down the list and make sure that you've answered all the questions and followed all the rules, and take note of the tips.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Thank you so much. I've got people in the chat already saying fabulous tips, so thank you. That's really useful. And obviously we will be doing later on some more top tips, but these are all from people that know about funding and know the things that you need to include when you're putting your applications in. So, you know, please do listen to them. It's not, you know, we're not just saying this for the sake of saying it. We're saying it because we've been there, done it, read the book, ate the pie, and won the t-shirt. So, you know, there's a few of us that have actually done things and done them wrong. So we're actually learning from the mistakes. But obviously David and John at Community Matters Yorkshire work with so many individuals and organisations. So thank you again. Our next funder is a social investor. So the first, we've got two social investors in today, and I know Rachel. I've known Rachel for a few years, and Rachel's great. She works for an organisation. She's the investment manager for Key Fund, and again, I've known Key Fund for many years. Too many years to mention, to be honest. But Key Fund have grown phenomenally over the past 2 decades, and not only provide loan funding, which Rachel's going to tell you about, but also grants. So I'll shut up because I'm sure Rachel's going to tell you all about them.
Good morning, everybody. So let's see, 10:54. Oh, that has me finishing bang on 11, all being well. First of all, what an inspirational bunch of people here today. It's been fantastic having a look at the introductions in the chat. And oh, you've got my creativity zinging. So anyway, enough about you, more about me. So Key Fund, a quick overview of Key Fund is that social investor means that we offer people loans wherever we can with accompanying grants. Things that people don't know about us are that that is a relationship-based process. It's not as scary as you might think. And as long as you're a social enterprise or a charity that is generating a traded income, which can be commissions as well as contracts, as well as selling services or memberships, then we might be useful for you. So I'm going to put a few links in the chat in a moment. I'm just going to make you aware of a few things. So first of all, Key Fund ourselves, we've been around for 21 years this year. We started off repackaging European grants and similar grants so that organisations could actually get hold of them. And we've moved into the loan and grant blend and back into some grants because that's what people need at the moment. As for organisations like yourselves, well, we do work in the north of England and the Midlands. So from sort of Northamptonshire all the way up to the Scottish borders, west and east. But I'm going to put you a link to Good Finance in the chat, which is a great place to find out about other social investors. And we all are very similar and slightly different. So it's worth checking us out. Debt finance, when it's planned, is not what your mum always said that you shouldn't have. It can be a really valuable tool. So it's worth checking into it. It's different from grants because it is for what you need it for. You don't have to comply with what we say. So if you want to find out more about social investment and the freedom that it can offer an organisation, just get in touch. You'll have my contact details, and I'm going to put a couple of links, as I say, into the chat. We also work with grant funds now more than we have done in a long time, because that's what people need. And I'm just going to highlight a few key ones at the moment. So we've got one called Investing for Growth Fund. I'm going to be really brief on this one because it is very location based. So it's for, deep breath, the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority. Yeah, and it's a capital fund. It's grants of 5,000 to 25,000. You have to match whatever spend you make, whatever spend you ask for from us with the spend that you make. So it's up to 50% grant and over 50% match funding. And you have to expend the whole project and evidence that spend before the awarded grant will actually be transferred. But it's free money for doing stuff to buildings and buying big gear. So if that sounds like you and you are based in the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority, have a look at the links that I'm going to put up in a minute. I'd also like to highlight a fund that we're working on in partnership. This is the Social Enterprise Support Fund. That launches on the 25th of November. There are partners in every part of England that are working on this. This is grants, again, 10,000 to 100,000. This is for social enterprises to rebuild post-COVID. So the eligibility is quite detailed, but all the information is laid out on the website, on the SESF website. Again, the link following shortly. And as long as you can demonstrate trading in the last 12 or 24 months, then you're in with a chance. So it might well be worth having a look. And just finally, from me, just to highlight a fund that we've got that's closing soon, but it's of particular relevance to those of you that are here today that are based in the north. So this is for organisations in the 11 most northernmost local enterprise partnerships. This is the Northern Cultural Regeneration Fund. It's up to 150,000, and the grant that goes, up to 150,000, and the grant that is part of that can be up to a third of that. So it's worth having if you have got a particular project spend. But you would need to talk to us sharpish, and you'd need to get your application in before Christmas because this fund runs out soon. So a bit of a taster there for you. I shall see you in the breakout rooms. I'll pop some links on the chat now, and you've got my contact details. Check out our website, get in touch.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you. Just to let everybody know, we are running a little bit over with this, which is fine. We're just going to keep rolling, and we'll just reduce the top tips and the Q&A sessions a tiny bit, but don't worry about it. Everything will be fine. You'll get a chance to ask questions. And again, if you don't, we will be sending your questions out to the funders. So again, don't worry about it. But thanks, Rachel. That's brilliant. Moving swiftly on, we now, I want to introduce you to Sarah Briggs. So Sarah, is from the Museums Association, but represents the Collections Fund. So without further ado, I will pass you over to Sarah.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me here today. As Joe said, my name's Sarah Briggs. I work for the Museums Association. I'm Collections Development Officer there, and primarily I work on the Esme Fairbairn Collections Fund. Although before I launch into that, I do just want to give you a little heads up to have a quick look out in the future for announcements around the Mindsets and Missions programme that was talked about briefly at conference this year. So we've been working with UKRI, AHRC, Welcome, and ASDC, who are the Association of Science Centres, if you haven't heard of them, to bring together a new programme. I can't announce any of the details right now, but it's just a little heads up to keep your eyes peeled for that in the future. It should be quite an exciting programme. But mostly I'm here today to talk to you about the Esme Fairbairn Collections Fund, which supports museums to use their collections to become relevant and sustainable organisations that are connected and valued by their communities. So as you might expect, we are the Collections Fund. So all applications to the Collections Fund must focus on existing collections. We can have we do accept applications that involve elements of contemporary collecting, but you need to have the basis of your project around an existing collection. Usually these are held by accredited museums, but we have had applications in the past from archives and library services who can demonstrate the sort of equivalent care of their collections. And we also accept applications from partnerships of museums and other organisations. So you may be a sporting organisation that wants to partner with a museum that's accredited with a collection to work together, and that's absolutely fine. All of the work that we fund must engage and involve audiences to achieve public benefit. So that's a real key and important part of our role. So quite a few of the funders here today have talked about people, and we're very much about connecting collections to people. So far, the fund's awarded over £10 million to 145 projects since it launched in 2011. I mean, somebody's already asked about sort of COVID responses. And so in 2020, we did shake up our funding in response to COVID, and we did end up awarding 26 sustaining engagement with collections project grants to support work that responded to the COVID-19 pandemic by finding ways to share collections when physical access wasn't possible. This year, we'll be awarding £1.3 million to around 14 to 20 projects this year, again, that are focused on collections engagement. There are two funding streams to this programme, but both offer grants of around £90,000 for projects over about 2 years. And although these rounds have now closed for 2021, and we haven't finalised our 2022 funding yet, it is very likely that they'll be along similar lines. So there will definitely be 2 rounds of funding next year in spring and autumn for the Esme Fairbairn Collections Fund. And I'll focus today on the elements that are very unlikely to change next year. So essentially, we're looking for projects that use existing collections to engage audiences. So we want to see a strong link between the collections and the audiences you want to work with, and for you to demonstrate that you've thought about social impact as an absolutely core part of your project. In addition, when you do this, you should always ask yourself very critically whether your target audiences will be interested in this and what they will actually gain from participation. I think it's really important that we ask ourselves some really hard questions early on. We might think that it's a great idea to do something and the audiences will definitely be interested, but have you actually got some evidence of that? Have you spoken to communities to know that they will in fact be interested? But the Collections Fund is the Collections Fund after all. So we also really want to understand why the collection that you have chosen merits development. So for example, what's important about the collection? What challenges does it face? What's special about it? Is it at risk, or is it really appealing? Alternatively, you might make a case around what opportunity the collection presents. So it might just match really nicely to a community need, or it might tell a story really well. Almost all collections and engagement activities are eligible in our fund, although there are some restrictions. So I'll tell you now what we don't cover, because I think it's always useful to know. A few people have talked about looking for funding for capital projects in the chat. We don't cover that, unfortunately. So we don't cover things like building work renovations or equipment. There are some elements of equipment we will fund. So if your project involves a new member of staff, you need a new laptop for that member of staff in order to be able to work. Yeah, we'll cover that. We don't offer grants to individuals or to causes that will benefit only one person. So that's things that might involve student grants or bursaries. We also don't cover grants that don't have a direct benefit in the UK. So, you know, those audiences that you really want to benefit really need to be primarily in the UK. We also don't fund the promotion of religion. That doesn't mean that we won't fund religious-based collections. So we might fund a sort of church or heritage collection, religious heritage collection. But if the primary focus of that project is about promoting religion, then we wouldn't fund it. And we don't provide retrospective funding, meaning support for work that has already taken place. It's project funding, and really it shouldn't be for anything that has already been planned. We're happy to fund 100% of projects. We're also happy to be that match funding person. You might want for you to find match funding elsewhere. And we do also recognise that there's often a need to undertake some quite basic back of house collections work in order to make your engagement elements viable. So it's absolutely fine to include that in your project. So we are realistic about supporting things like documentation, travel and project management time. However, all of your projects, having said that, need to progress beyond back of house and preparatory work on collections. So you really need to make sure your collections are getting out there and that there are activities with audiences and communities as part of that project. Applicants should also think about the legacy of their project when the activity ends. So when you're thinking about how your project's going to end, it's useful to think about how you might manage those relationships that you've built in the first place, how any learning that you've done from the project is going to be embedded and retained in your organisation in the future, or how the project's helping you to move closer towards achieving strategic goals of your organisation. I always say in this era of short-term funding, that any short-term funding that you get for any project should just be like a stepping stone on the journey that your museum or organisation is undertaking in the longer term. At the moment, we particularly welcome applications that align with our priorities and the priorities of the Esme Fairbairn Foundation. So things like ways in which to use collections to highlight things like the climate crisis. There's also things around work around decolonising collections, and also democratising collections practice. So those themes are particularly welcome at the moment. Not that you have to address those themes at all. Anything that speaks to our Museums Change Lives programme is always a really good call. So projects that use collections to help participants improve their lives in some way. Importantly, we're a funder who is very happy to talk to you before you put an application in. So you can contact me to book a conversation. And if you're seeking to apply, I would definitely encourage you to do so. I do try and be as honest as possible, and I do ask the questions that I think the decision makers will ask. So you have the opportunity to address them in your application before they get asked. But very critically as well, I will tell you if your project is not a good fit for the fund. So I really understand that funding bids take a lot of time. And so if your application is not likely to be considered, I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm not going to encourage you to take that time to fill it in. I do appreciate that you're all under a lot of pressure. It does mean that we don't get as many applications as we used to. And if you look at the stats on paper from this last year, you might think that the competition for the fund is dropping. But what I would say is be wary of that, because what we're actually seeing is a very high quantity of very, very fundable applications. So, you know, it's a very tough shortlisting process, and usually, you know, 90% of the applications we get, we could very easily fund, and we can't. So do seek to be, you know, really brave in your applications. We're happy to fund projects that are quite experimental, but really do ask yourself, is your project really innovative for the sector? Is this seeking to develop your organisation or sector-wide collections practice before you apply? Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you. Really appreciated and good to know. I think one of the things that you've said is probably going to ring true for quite a few funders at the moment, about the fact that everybody that's submitting are submitting really good applications, and there's so much competition out there at the moment. So I'm sure that's going to come up in the top tips about things that people need to consider. But thank you. Moving on from Sarah, I'd now like to introduce you to Alpa Patel, and Alpa represents Sport England. So for any of those organisations that are thinking about doing projects around sports and sports heritage, hopefully Alpa's going to give you a few bits of information about what they're currently doing. Over to you, Alpa.
Thank you, Jo, and good morning, everybody. It's really nice to hear from so many funders today, and hear the different top tips as well. I'll try and keep this brief because I do know we've got limited time, but I guess with myself, I'm an investment advisor at Sport England, so I work within the investment management team. I work as part of a group of investment advisors, and our role is to support applicants with funding queries, We also give advice and information regarding various aspects of our organisation. So we don't just sort of deal with funding, there are other elements that we are able to help and support with. For those that might not be so aware of Sport England, we're an arm's length body of the government and national lottery distributor responsible for grassroots and community sport and physical activity. We distribute close to 300 million exchequer and national lottery funding per annum to support the development of community-based sport and physical activity. So we use our advocacy, insight and the investments mentioned above to harness the benefits of sport and physical activity for individuals and communities across England. We currently have 2 open programs. This is just in light of obviously the pandemic. So it's the Return to Play Small Grants Fund and the Return to Play Active Together crowdfunding program. Both programs are our response to the impact that COVID-19 has had on resuming activity. We previously did have the Community Emergency Fund, but that was only open from when the first lockdown had been introduced in March, at the end of March last year, and ran until the middle of May last year. So the Return to Play Small Grants Fund supports not-for-profit organisations with various costs such as additional hygiene and safety equipment, service alterations such as additional venue hire or hiring of additional coaches due to smaller numbers in sessions, and any other elements which will enable participants to return back to their activities safely. So this funding is very much so about supporting people to be able to restart their activities where they've not been able to do so due to lockdowns and restrictions that have taken place. And the funding amounts go from £300 up to £10,000 per organisation. We have 2 key priorities for this particular fund. So it's looking at projects that are located in areas of high deprivation and projects that are working with communities that have suffered worse health outcomes and reduced activity levels. So from our insight, this has been sort of groups such as girls and women, young people aged 16 to 24 years old, and older people aged 70 plus. We also encourage applications from organisations who support people on low incomes, people with long-term health conditions or disabled people, Black, Asian and other diverse communities, and LGBTQ plus people as well. We can support running costs. However, this is only for those that are located in the IMD areas 1 to 3, so that's the indices and multiple deprivation areas. And this would have to form as part of a wider return to play request as well. The main focus of the fund is to return back to pre-existing activities. However, where challenges have been presented and participants are not comfortable returning back to their previous activities, we may consider sort of applications that are adapted projects to respond to the needs of participants to help them get back into the activities again. This fund is for activities that haven't restarted yet, so it's quite important that people are aware of that. It's more so to restart the activities, and it's open until the end of 2021. We also have a Active Together crowdfunding program, and this is in partnership with Crowdfunding UK. So this is where we can offer a match funding of up to 50% of a project and a maximum of £10,000 per successful campaign. The main focus of this is again to return back to activity following the impact that COVID-19 has had. It does have a bit more flexibility, so this is where if an organisation or club's funds have been negatively affected, thus impacting their support for any priority projects they may have had planned, then these types of projects are sort of considered under this particular programme. We have a dedicated team working with Crowdfunder, and they're available to support the setup of campaigns and, you know, run through any questions or queries that you may have regarding setting up crowdfunding, as it may not be the traditional route of sort of grant funding or being able to access support for a project. We also have guides available one-to-one support from the crowdfunding team, and also webinars that people can join on to, which is really useful. Just to get a bit of information if you're not sort of aware of the process or just want to find out more from different groups that have also already accessed the funding. We are also working with active partnerships and strategic national partners to distribute our Together Fund. This was previously known as the Tackling Inequalities Fund. So this is to support organisations setting up and delivering activities to our target people in 4 main groups. So that's low socioeconomic groups, disabled people, culturally diverse communities, and people with long-term health conditions. Recently, a further 20 million has been invested to support these groups, which is where these groups were identified as being the most negatively impacted in activity levels during the pandemic. We're currently in the transition year of our new strategy, Uniting the Movement. We hope to have non-COVID related funding in the future. However, we currently don't know what that will look like or when it will become available. So it will be focused sort of around the 5 big issues that have been sort of highlighted through our new strategy, and that's recover and reinvent, connecting communities, positive experiences for children and young people, active environments, and connecting with health and well-being. So you can find further updates on our website or by signing up to our newsletter, which will give you regular updates on any sort of new programs that may become available in the future. So Sport England, as much as we are, as we see, involved with a lot of funding and grant making, we do have non-funding related support available as well, and this is through our Club Matters guidance, insight and data, design guidance, and campaigns as well that we run, such as This Girl Can and We Are Undefeatable. So there's a lot of different support elements that we can offer for organisations and community groups. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alpa. That's really useful. And I think as well, sometimes with the organisations that we work with, they sometimes don't think that they're eligible for funds from Sport England, but obviously, you know, Sporting Heritage shows that you can do that. So that was really useful. Thank you. Moving on, we've got 2 more funders, guys, before we move into the breakout room. So the next person I want to introduce you to is another colleague who I've known for a few years. Comes from sunny Sheffield, like I do. It's the lovely Asha Karbari, who works she's the investment manager for the Architectural Heritage Fund, who not only do support grants and loans, but have also funded quite a few programmes within the heritage sector as well. But I'm going to let Asha tell you a lot more about that. Welcome, Asha.
Thanks, everybody. I'm conscious you've all been talked at for quite some time, so I'll try to keep it succinct as possible. So yeah, I mean, the Architectural Heritage Fund, or the AHF as we like to call ourselves, our prime focus is to help organisations to kind of either acquire, restore and reuse historic buildings across the UK, and to kind of find viable and sustainable uses for these historic buildings. So for whatever purpose your enterprise is set up to do, or your charity is set up to do, if the historic building is a suitable property for you to take on and use, then that's something that we'll support you with. And like Joe mentioned, I like to think of the AHF as a wraparound service, so we can provide advice and support at that early stage. We do have a grants programme, which is split into 2 sections. So we've got a project viability grant, which is a small grant of up to £15,000 to kind of do that early stage feasibility if you're looking to take on a historic building. So you don't actually have to have acquired the building, it's just to kind of look at how feasible would it be to take on this building, what the costs might be. And then we can go on to kind of a project development grant, which will help you work out a bit more of that capital project development costings. Because we do understand historic buildings, it can involve thousands up to millions of pounds of restoration. So it's looking at those costings and where you would then go to find the bigger funding for those projects. But I work on the investment team of the AHF, and that is a kind of a social investment loans provision. And similar to what Rachel does at Key Fund, it is debt finance. So we are looking for projects where, you know, you do have a revenue stream at the moment where you would be able to repay the loan with the interest and costs as well. So we do support a number of sporting organisations who have taken on historic buildings, and we've got a current one up in Glasgow who is restoring their current boathouse. So the building itself doesn't necessarily have to be listed or in a conservation area, but if that building has some historic or architectural significance to your organisation or the community around it, then if you're able to present a sufficient argument of why that building is important to your community, then it is something that we will consider with you. So it is always good to kind of pick up the phone and ask for some advice and, you know, that early stage support. And we're always, you know, helpful to, and we'll come back to you. And we have staff available in all the different regions and in the 4 countries as well. So if you do go on our website, and I'll pop the details in the chat after our talk to give you some details about the website and some of the programs that we support. But if your organisation is looking at a historic building or potentially looking at a historic building, then, you know, the AHF is a very good organisation to start off with. I'll wrap that up, Joe.
Fab. Thank you, Asha. Thanks so much. And finally, last but by no means least, I'd like to introduce you all to Shirley Lundstrom. Some of you may have already met Shirley because she may be on the Heritage Compass support programme. But if not, I'm sure Shirley is going to tell you more about that, but also tell you about some of the other projects that she's involved in as well. Welcome, Shirley.
Thanks, Joe. And I've got some slides that I've started sharing here, which it looks to me like are okay. Yeah, great. Thank you. It's great to be invited to this because there's such a brilliant mix of people from across the country. I'm really pleased to meet you all. I'm here representing Cause 4 today. I work there as the head of programme for the Heritage Compass initiative. And Cause 4 is a social business. It was founded by Michelle Wright and exists to support charities and the voluntary sector to achieve more and better. And we specialise at Cause 4 in fundraising, income generation, programme development, and we partner with charities, philanthropists and corporations who really want to make social change. I'd like to highlight 2 of our current programmes today. First of all, arts fundraising and philanthropy, and then more detail, because this is an exciting current opportunity with a Heritage Compass. So arts fundraising and philanthropy is set up to try and really transform, which is all what we're doing here this morning, fundraising knowledge and skills right across the whole of the cultural sector. And this programme works with trustees, leaders, volunteers, workers at all levels to really develop diverse and entrepreneurial income generation and fundraising practice. And we do this through ideas and innovation and consultancy, strategy and leadership, really again focusing on those commercial opportunities that we see out there, and training and lifelong learning. You can see here some of the specific things that we do. We have a PG cert, we have various regional networks you can get engaged with. We publish and share case studies through the sector, and we've had a whole range of COVID specific support programs running. Just go back one there. I want to highlight 2 things that are coming up, 2 dates on introduction to legacy funding. This really is a growth area in the sector. And it's one of the longest and simplest and oldest methods of giving that's there. These 2 training sessions, 2nd and 9th of December, both morning slots, could really introduce and help you if you're thinking about that area of income. We've got some really good trainers, and Michelle Wright's actually leading this one herself, and she has a lot of expertise in this area. I'd also recommend, and we'll share this afterwards, that you sign up to our mailing list because we have lots of opportunities like that. We've had the network funding that supported Joe with the event today that comes in waves, and we've got new e-learning coming online in January too. My screen and my computer are being very sensitive today. Okay, so on to Heritage Compass. This is a current programme opportunity and it's the last time we're able to offer it. Our deadline is the 16th of December, so coming up quite soon. And this is a business resilience support programme that we launched in 2020, working with the following partners: Creative United and the Arts Marketing Association. And we also work with MyCake, who are finance benchmarking specialists, and DHA Communications, who are evaluators. This is generously supported by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. So it's great to see Helen here today, and also DCMS. We're into the third round of the programme, and it's focused on the small to medium-sized heritage sector throughout the whole of England. And we've got a really exciting range of organisations involved so far. So people like the Red Archive, which is a community archive based in Liverpool, based on football. And I grew up in Liverpool, so quite keen on that one. We've got the Mountain Heritage Trust, Withington Baths, which really relates to the last speaker's comments about, this one's an Edwardian pool that's been brought back into life by the community. Wimbledon Sporting History, and one of our favourites actually, England Netball Heritage and Archives. There's a whole range. There's also steam trains, museums, black archives, whatever you can imagine. So if you come on the programme, you'll be part of that mix. The offer is fully funded, and you have 6 training sessions that you would go through. These are business planning, governance, fundraising, and income, which I know you're all interested in, and your financial management and audience development. You work together in groups on those, and you have a chance next year to be part of our 2nd national symposium. You also connect into a network on Slack. One of the really generous offers in the programme, due to the funding we've secured, is your critical friend and mentor opportunity. So your organisation gets to work with a professional in the field. I can see some familiar faces on here today who are critical friends and mentors, and also who are part of the programme. And you get e-learning through our partnership with the University of Leeds. You also get to be part of a huge national database that we're developing, which helps you benchmark your finances and decide where to put your best efforts. We are looking for organisations who are at the moment are looking at their sustainability over the next 3 to 5 years. So not very urgent COVID recovery stuff, although we can help with that, but people who are more planning ahead. And we're looking for a mixture of different scales of organisation. So we're looking for turnover for anything from £10,000 up to £1 million. And we're looking all around England. You might be looking to change from project to project up to being an organisation. You might be a CIC that wants to become a charity, or a charity that wants to become a CIC. So all that structural stuff. Or you might be a university archive or museum, or part of a bigger structure like a local authority or a parks programme. And if your individual financial model means you're under £1 million turnover, you will be eligible to apply for the programme. My computer, honestly, it's so sensitive and never normally like this. Excuse the slides. We're looking across all areas of heritage. So the very broad definition that some of you will be familiar with from the Heritage Lottery Fund. So you might be a cultural memories or cultural dance project. You might be working on community heritage, industrial maritime collections, all of it. Very simple, light touch application process. We know that people like this. You submit your application via SurveyMonkey, and there's a link in the slide that I'm going to circulate later with the recruitment pack. It's very straightforward, and there's a Word document to help you do a quick application before you put it in online. We can provide help to you with that. We think it will take you about half an hour to 45 minutes. If you go into that SurveyMonkey form, this is a top tip actually, you can go away, it will save what you're doing, so you don't have to do it in one go. We do have a limited number of access support bursaries. These are available up to the 16th of December on a rolling basis between £500 and £2,000. This is because we recognise taking part in the programme will take time away, and it's to support you with any access needs you might have in terms of disability or to cover staff. So you would need to demonstrate that carefully when you apply. We're also able to cover all your travel costs for events that we'll be doing live next year around the country in various locations. So it is a really generous package. I'd encourage, you know, in all your diversity that I see, all your work areas on this grouping to apply, because the feedback coming through is that people are finding it really valuable. Obviously, I've chosen people that we've worked well with here, but that network and confidence is coming through in the resilience programme we're doing with people. And here's a really lovely quote from the Diving Museum in Gosport, they've really been able to improve their financial management through working with us. I'm talking about this again later in the week. If you want to come to a Q&A, and again in December, just before the deadline. You can reserve your place through this link, which will be circulated, or if you Google Heritage Compass, you'll find us. And I've just got my contact slide there. Thank you all for listening. You've had a long stint there of all of us. Thanks, Jo.
Thank you so much, Shirley. And we will be forwarding Shirley's slides on to everybody after the session. So please don't worry about that. So you will have all the links to the Heritage Compass dates there. Before we finish, and I know we have overrun and we are going to go into the breakout sessions next, you may have noticed there are a couple of lottery funders that can't be with us today. And so I've been given some information. The first one is the Arts Council. So Catherine Boardman has apologised profusely today to say, you know, because she couldn't make it. So she has given me some information about what the Arts Council, the funds that they've currently got, which again we will send out to you. But quickly, just so you know, their current funding opportunities, they do have project grants back out again, and the applications are open from the 22nd of November 2021, but the guidance is already up there now, so you can have a look at project grants if you think that your project that you're looking to develop would benefit from that funding. It's 1,000 to 100,000, no deadlines, quick decisions for up to £30,000 with a decision in 8 weeks. Decisions over £30,000 are 12 weeks. Projects are up to 3 years, therefore time limited. The next one is developing your creative practice, which 4 rounds a year, and the current round open for applications between the 9th of November 2021 and the 7th of December 2021. The grants are for £2,000 to £10,000, projects for up to a year, and it's a very short form, but it is focused on personal development to give you time to develop your creative skills, knowledge and network. It's not about public facing work like the project grants. The next one, which is a new one that some of you may have seen it promoted last week, is the DCMS Volunteering Futures Fund. That has just come out and it's been managed through the Arts Council. It's a very time limited funding opportunity to create more and better volunteering opportunities for young people experience loneliness and others who experience barriers to volunteering. It's time limited, so the grants are for £100,000 over. So it's over £100,000. The projects have to be between 12 and 24 months. The expression of interest opens on the 22nd of November 2021, closes the 7th of December 2021. And those that are successful in that first phase will be invited to do a full application in January 2022. The programme budget is 4.7 million. She's also put in some useful resources and a whole host of top tips as well. Bless Catherine. So we will send that out. And then finally, the other lottery funder that couldn't make it today is the National Lottery Community Fund, who were treble booked today. Unfortunately, they've got a team meeting and they're also doing another conference with Sported, and so couldn't attend ours. But basically, Jenny said to me, She's given me some top tips, which have already been reiterated by most of our speakers, but she's also said, if anybody wants any information about our funds, please, please, please do go on the website as a first port of call and have a look at what's open, check the criteria, and if you've got any questions, obviously there is email and contact details on the website for you to get in touch. And there is a local team like there are with all the other lottery funders, so you can talk to people about your project before you apply. Welcome back, welcome back. So final bit of this now. We've got 25 minutes. We've overrun, but to be honest, I don't mind, because I think the information that was coming from the funders was really useful. So what we're going to do is we're going to merge the last two sessions. So the last two sessions are around top tips, and then obviously providing you with an opportunity to ask any more questions. And again, and I know I keep saying this, we will be saving the chat, so any questions that don't get answered, we will be sending a chat list through and talking to our speakers as well about them to see if we can get any more answers. So my first question, which is going to go to all the speakers really, and it's about top tips, which is really difficult, so I do apologize everybody because I feel like I'm putting you on the spot, and it wasn't intentional. If you could give somebody 3 top tips who are looking to come to you for funds, what would those 3 top tips be? And I'm going to start with, because I'm just going on my screen, so I'm going to start with who I can see first, and I can see Shirley first.
Hi, Joe, sorry. Right, the 3 top tips. This does not mean to be as patronising as it sounds, but just answer the question. People are always so passionate about what they do. They want to tell you everything. Just be really focused, answer the question. Read and read again all of the eligibility and all of the questions and criteria. Just repeat that several times. And my other top tip is start keeping a file. And I really wish I'd done this when I started out in fundraising. I'm getting on a bit now, quite a long time ago. Keep that file of all your governance documentation, so you're not having to repeat again and again each time you go for something, gathering all your background data and information.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Right, moving swiftly on. David, you must know some fabulous top tips, because this is the sort of stuff that you do day in, day out at Community Matters Yorkshire. You're on mute, David, sorry. There we go.
Sorry about that. Yeah, our 10 top tips, which will be winging its way to you very shortly, Joe. Plan ahead. Think outside the box with your projects, and can you break it down? Remember, there are no shortcuts to an application. Be specific. I can't agree more with what Shirley said about being specific about your project and not just blathering on for pages about how wonderful you've been in the past. Read the form before you start, complete it in full, explain any technicalities, don't use acronyms, and spell check is a wonderful tool, and then get someone to read it and make sure they understand it.
Brilliant, thank you. That was more than 3, but that's fab. Thanks, David. Absolutely brilliant.
I think there's 10 coming.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, that's fabulous. I'm going to move swiftly on to Emma.
Thanks. I'm sure that I'm going to be duplicating what people have said already. My first one, which is something Sarah said earlier, is if you're developing a project, make sure it's something that there is actually an appetite for, something that your communities want, and evidence that in your application, you know, whether the project is based on a pilot, whether it comes out of sort of audience research, consultation. Some of the best proposals that I have read over the last year read as if they're really rooted in the museum's communities and what they want, rather than just something that the museum feels that they should be delivering. And sort of following on from that, consider your marketing needs for your project, especially if it involves reaching audiences that you haven't worked with before. So you might not be able to rely on your normal marketing channels. You might have to sort of think a bit more broadly. And there's some great resources out there to help with that. The Arts Marketing Association is fantastic. Provided that it's a cost that you can put in your budget for your grant, make sure that you put it in there, whether it's sort of direct marketing costs or bringing in a consultant. If you don't have the expertise in-house, you could have the best project in the world, but if you haven't worked marketing into your plans and put sort of sufficient resources towards it, then we won't know that it will reach the intended audiences and have the impact that you hope it will. And then finally, know the funders' priorities. So, you know, hopefully funders are sort of putting that information out there. You can also look at other recently funded projects that they've supported. And there's sort of two sides to this. I know I'm not being very brief. Two sides to this. Firstly, if you have an awareness of their priority area and your project is a great fit for that, you can sort of really demonstrate how it is and make a great application. But on the other hand, I think it's really important that you don't fundamentally change your project to fit it into what you think the funder wants to see. I think that's doing a disservice to you, to your audiences. If you find that you're sort of trying to shoehorn an element in because you think it's what the funder wants to hear, it's going to come across in your application. And what I'm really saying is make sure that the funder is a good fit for you as well as vice versa.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm just going to say the last person that I come to today is going to really, really struggle to come up with some top tips because everybody's going to have gone through them. But moving swiftly on, Rachel, Key Fund, your top tips.
My top tips, some of this you might have heard before, elevator pitch. So be able to explain your organisation and what you're about very briefly to a stranger who knows nothing. That ties into David's and other advice about answering Shirley's advice, answer the question in the box. So you've got to be able to paint a picture of what will actually happen to somebody who knows nothing about your organisation. They're experts at what they do, not what you do. So you've got to be able to explain it really well. For us, social impact is really important. So as well as your elevator pitch, you need a social impact nutshell. So to be able to explain the difference that you make to other people's daily lives in a nutshell. Two more, know your numbers, don't be frightened. You might feel that you're not the most confident person when it comes to finances. Find a simple system that works and keep on top of it. And if it really doesn't work for you, find somebody who can help you with it. But just don't be frightened of it. Keep looking at it. Open the bill. Don't just stick it in the file, kind of thing. And finally, so for people that are trading, know who your customers are. And your connection to them. So it's no good, for example, knowing that there are so many schools in a given area that are, and 25% of those will probably buy your service. How are you going to actually get connected to those people who are going to buy what it is you've got to offer? So the connections directly through people, networks are vital. That's it from me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Helen, Heritage Fund, over to you.
Hi, well, firstly, every tip so far has been absolutely brilliant. But what I would say is before you approach any funder, the 3 tips I would give are what, who, and why. So think about what is it you want to do. So are you looking at doing an oral history project on your local sports club to find out about supporters' memories? Are you looking to sort of record nature in your local woodland? Whatever it is, what is it you want to do? Who are you going to involve? So who are the people that you're already working with? Who aren't you working with? Who are you going to involve in the project? And then why? Think about why you're doing this. What will you achieve? What will the impact be? Again, a lot of funders are outcomes focused. So think about what will be achieved as a result of this project and the impact, the difference the project will make. So again, every other tip that's been given has been brilliant and would be relevant for us also.
Brilliant, thank you. Alpa, Sport England.
That's some great advice so far. So yeah, I don't know how I'm going to follow up. It will probably be duplicated, but be clear, be specific, be realistic. So clear in your application who it is that you're delivering to, who it is that you're helping in terms of people, what you do as an organization and what your main purpose is, being specific about what your actual funding request is, what is it that you need support with, is it realistic, does it achieve your outcomes, is that particular funding, you know, I already mentioned, is it ourselves that are the best funding organisation, or is it someone else that's going to be able to help you? So yeah, those three.
Thank you. Last but by no means least, and you're going to hate me forever, aren't you, Asha? But over to you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think the only top tip I would probably add on top of the others is that we know a lot of business plans and cash flow forecasts can be put together by professionals or consultants. So when you are putting in funding applications and you do have whether it's, I guess, a grants officer or an investment manager, or, you know, somebody who calls to do the assessment of your application, you're able to know where those figures have come from or how they've been put together, and the business plan as well. Because, I mean, I'm sure all the funders here on the call today will have read tons and tons of business plans and gone through tons of cash flow forecasts, and no one business plan is the same. So it's not, I guess, it's not the quantity, it's the quality. So, you know, whether it's a 50-page business plan or a 5-page business plan, as long as it's clear and concise and you know the content of that business plan and the content of the cash flows that have been put together, I think that's really helpful. And I think that's yeah, that would be my biggest top tip.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody, for that. I'm just going to put a few others into the mix, which will really upset Fran because it means she's got to write some more when she's doing the chat. But from my perspective, listening to everybody today, one quote that I loved, and I think it was David, I think it was you that said it, which was, make the funder want to fund you. I love that, and I think that is it. I know it's really difficult with COVID because what we've gone through, and obviously funds have been diminished and everybody's now coming in to go for funds, so there's a lot more competition. But yeah, make the funder want to fund you, which means that you have to read, you know, all the criteria and the guidance, making sure that it's right for you, and you've got to answer the question. And the other thing as well is thinking about, how is your project going to make a difference? It's that impact thing that's key. So it's not just about the bums on seats and the numbers, the quantitative, it's about the qualitative impact your project is going to make to your beneficiaries, your visitors, your audiences, and that wider community. The other one is, why should a funder fund you over and above somebody else? What is it that you've got that makes you the dog's doodahs compared to somebody else? So what is it, you know, what have you got that makes a funder think, yeah, I want to fund them rather than somebody else? And the other thing, and this is because I do this day in, day out with organisations, is there's no point going for funding if your internal infrastructure is not robust and resilient. And that takes into consideration the things that have already been said: business plan, financial management, governance is key, you know, governance, and making sure that you've got the right systems and processes and policies in place, so that actually you're working from that robust foundation before you go to the funder. Because if you haven't got that in place, things will start to fall around you if you haven't. And that's not me being negative, it's me being practical and realistic. And I will shut up in a minute just to say, leading on from that, Sporting Heritage, and I know I mentioned this in my breakout room, and I know Justine's put it in the chat, but Sporting Heritage has just launched an absolutely phenomenal online toolkit resource for people to look at how they can get their internal infrastructure in place. And it was done through the blood, sweat and tears of Fran Stovall and Sonia Raspberry, who put it all together, who did a brilliant job. But it looks at all those different subjects: governance, business planning, marketing, fundraising, income generation, collections management. It's everything. And I'm right in saying, Justine, it's free, isn't it, for people to access? And
it's been supported and funded by the other amazing Sport England. So
yeah,
we have 3 people here who I have a massive thank you, Fran, Sonia and Asha.
Yeah, so it that, you know, if you are worried or you've got questions about things like that, please do visit the Sporting Heritage website and have and search for toolkit. And I know Justine's put the link in the chat anyway. I am now going to shut up, you'll all be pleased to hear. And this is your floor. We've now got 10 minutes, but you have had chance to ask questions and breakout. Has anybody got any burning questions that they want to ask the funders and supporters that are still left with us before we close at 1 o'clock?
I haven't got any questions, but hi, it's Martin here. But just to say, this has been invaluable. And I think all you guys are just absolutely brilliant. I've just learned so much today. I just can't tell you, and it's just been so exciting.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
No, thank you so much. Thank you. I'll pay you later. Thank you. Anybody else got any questions?
It's in the post.
No. Well, let me just say then that we will, as a team, we've got lots of resources that our funders and our speakers and support agencies have sent us that we are going to forward on to everybody that's registered for this course. Obviously, we've got the chat as well, so we'll print out some of we'll put the questions in a chat sheet for everybody. But to be honest, I know I went through, I think I got about 13 questions, and I went through quite a few of them, and I think quite a lot of them have been addressed anyway within some of the conversations that we had in the breakout rooms. But what we will do is obviously put the links for all the speakers here as well to their websites, so that you can access information from them. But I don't know, Fran, Justine, I don't know if you want to say anything. Obviously, I've been talking way too much today.
Oh, just a really big thank you to all of you for turning up and participating in the event today, because having those questions raised so that we can support the funders to understand what we're trying to do, and for you to have that advice and support from them while they're here. And to the funders, thank you for giving your time to support everybody to understand what you're doing and how we can, as a sector, work more closely with you and make sure what we're asking for fits what you need. So for Sport and Heritage, this is brilliant for us, and a lot of our work does cut across the wider heritage and cultural sector. So we have lots of people who have sporting collections within other organisations, or who come to us through sport, but then we support with other collections that they might be trying to develop. So just keep letting us know what you need, how we can support you develop it, and hopefully we'll be able to do some more of these going forward. And a massive thanks to Fran for being an amazing workforce lead again, and sorting us all out and getting us all into the right rooms and back out again. Oh my goodness. And to Sonia for joining and being brilliant in terms of developing the toolkit and helping with the breakout room. So that's my bit. Thank you all.
Can I just ask everybody, would you be interested in if we started to do these on a regular basis? I mean, not every week, but if we did a meet the session and looked at doing something like this, would this be something that you would be interested in getting involved in and joining us again for? Yes. I'm seeing people nodding, which is brilliant.
Yes, absolutely.
Brilliant.
Lots of thumbs so that the funders can see it.
Put yes in chat for us. Put yes or no in chat, and then we obviously get that recorded, because again, we can use this when moving forward when we're talking to people about what we want to do, because we have discussed this and said, yeah, brilliant.
Okay.
Yeah. Fran, have you got anything that you want to say before we all sign off?
Only that, and I've put a little bit in the chat, that if you give me about a week or so, I will edit this recording. I'll send all the PowerPoint slide decks that we've had and the information that we had from people like the Arts Council and the other lottery funder who couldn't be with us today, summary of all the chat, and as much other information that we've gathered in a massive wrap-up email. So you should get that hopefully in the next 7 to 10 days. If there's anything that's been missed, give me a shout and I'll make sure we can connect you either with the right person or find the information for you. So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you.
Brilliant. My last final thank you is to Arts Fundraising and Philanthropy for the network grant, because without that, Shirley, so I'm doing that, without that we wouldn't have been able to do this session today. So thanks to you and the team there at Arts Fundraising and Philanthropy, and I'm sure we'll be coming back to you again. But thank you everybody. I think that's a wrap. I think it's been a really busy, hectic session, but I hope you've all found it really useful, and thank you for your time this morning, because I know 3 hours is a long time to be staring at a screen, but hopefully it's been worthwhile, and we've really enjoyed having your virtual company here at Sport and Heritage. So thank you. Bye everybody.